Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I am very grateful to be here with you on a daily basis. I don't express that near enough, and I just wanted to start out the show by a little attitude of gratitude. I'm grateful to have this opportunity every day to kind of vent with you, I hope you'll use that as well. I know a lot of our people are right now kind of getting bored to death staying at home. Share our show with them. Let them know that if you want a place to kind of vent, maybe even yell at the TV screen or the computer screen, this is a pretty good place to be. But I don't take it for granted, and I just want to say thank you at the top of the show. All right, we got a great show for you today. As you could probably tell, I'm amped up a little bit. The checks are coming. The checks are coming. Is Donald Trump is he your president? If he's not your president, are you still going to cash the check? We're going to talk about that. And it finally happened. I mean, it took forever and a day, but Obama has come out and said Joe is the answer. I'm not exactly sure what the question is, but we'll explore that in just a moment. And Democrats, this is an ongoing story. We got an opinion piece, if we can get to it, from Amy Klobuchar, and it is about stealing the election. It's all about that mail-in vote, which we cannot allow to happen. And we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But the president's name to be printed on relief checks. This is from the Washington Post. The Treasury Department has ordered President Donald Trump's name to be printed on the stimulus checks the Internal Revenue Service is rushing to send to tens of millions of Americans. And I saw a few posts on Facebook today that some people are starting to get theirs already. But it says Americans, tens of millions of Americans, a process that, now this is the words of the Washington Post article, a process that could slow their delivery by a few days. And this is according to senior IRS officials, but of course they cannot be named, right? Everything is anonymous. If true, to use the Democrats' phrase, if true that this is going to be delayed, Mr. Trump signing the checks is going to delay your check. If that is true, it is not his fault. It simply shows the inefficiency of government. Because let me just tell you, and they talk about this a little bit in the article. Some of it I edited out. They say, oh, they got to change the computer code and they got to do this and they got to do that. I mean, come on, man. Give me a break. Now, only in government would this potentially hold it up. In a business, you could print checks. Now, I know they're printing millions and millions of checks. I get it. I get that. Now, printing checks may be a slow process, but changing the code to alter the look of the check would take somebody in a business about 10 minutes. So you can't tell me it's going to take more than a day to do that. It's just crazy to even insinuate that. Of course, Mr. Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, said there'll be no delay. The unprecedented decision, everything you see with Donald Trump is unusual, unprecedented, unhinged. I can't wait till we reelect him in 2020 and he's unleashed, but that's just my opinion. But the unprecedented decision finalized late Monday means that when recipients open the $1,200 paper checks, the IRS is scheduled to begin sending to 70 million Americans in coming days. Donald Trump will appear on the left side of the payment. So he's not really going to be on the signature side of the right, but it's basically going to have his signature on the left side of the check, which may take an extra 10 minutes to adjust that, I'm sure. But this, let me just tell you, ladies and gentlemen, to me, and I know there are quite a few people out there that may or may not agree with this, but I think it's cool. I have to tell you, I think it is. It may be unprecedented, but it's cool, man. I'd like to see Trump put the shades on and be like that or something. I don't know. Unprecedented decision. Everything that Donald Trump does is unprecedented. Like, for instance, promises made, promises kept. That's probably about the most unprecedented thing President Trump has actually done. And this idea that it's totally unprecedented to have someone's name on the check, I don't know if this happens in every county of every state, but I know it does happen in Florida, and I've seen it some other places because I've owned property in some other states. That if you pay, when you pay your property tax bill, at least like here in Florida, you have to write the check out to whomever is the actual tax collector. You have to, like in our case, his name is John Powers. Howdy, my friend, good friend of mine. But you have to write, you don't write the check out to Alachua County, the county I live in. You write the check out to the county tax collector. His name, literally, you have to write it out to. Now, to me, that's one thing tax collectors probably put in years and years ago. Can you imagine a better advertisement than just who you got to write the check to? Of course, it may backfire on it, but it hasn't so far. And as far as unprecedented, calling something, naming something, in this case, the Trump stimulus thing, well, Obama, he didn't seem to have a problem with him calling it Obamacare and all that kind of stuff. So this idea that presidents haven't used government programs to foster themselves is ridiculous. And as far as the IRS, they're people at their office talking about, oh, this is unprecedented. Well, so was Obama's unprecedented, to a certain extent, use of the IRS to weaponize. He weaponized the IRS, at least we forget, that to go after conservative groups during the kind of Tea Party era. And as far as President Trump, one thing about President Trump, he is not trying. I mean, I get this all the time, that President Trump needs to be more transparent and all that. How much more transparent does President Trump need to be? Everything he does is Trump. I mean, now he's putting his name on the check, Trump. I mean, President Trump, if he had his way, he would probably put a Trump sign outside the White House. And I know some of y'all would just go, I actually love it. One thing about it, if you go into any city in the world, and you don't have to wonder whether Donald Trump has a presence there, because if he does, it's going to be in the main square and it's going to say Trump. So Donald Trump does not shy away from much of anything, does he? I love it, man. Well, while some people receiving the checks, the centerpiece of U.S. government's economic relief package to stave off the effects of the coronavirus pandemic, may not care or observe whose name appears on them. Most people ain't going to pay no attention to it. Of course, the checks that are going to arrive first, so to speak, will be electronic straight into your bank account. And I don't know if there's any way to actually put that on the check. Maybe they should just put that in the memo on your thing. Trump, your check. Is he still your president? Is he now your president? If he's not your president, will you not take the check? Can you just return the money? You're allowed to do that, by the way. You can return the money, or you can sign it over to me, check it out. I mean, he's still my president. But it says, whose name appears on them, the decision is another sign, according to this article, of Trump's effort to cast his response to the pandemic in political terms. He's not the first one to try to do that, by the way. But I just think President Trump, man, I mean, he's brilliant. He is absolutely brilliant. And I was debating back and forth a little bit on Facebook with a lawyer friend of mine, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for him, but he's a hardcore liberal, and he knows who he is if he's watching the show. But he said, because I talked about a political bomb, that one of the reasons why many of us dregs and deplorables, I hadn't quite figured out what. I hadn't talked about that in a while. I guess I can channel whichever way I want. Billy Bob here, who is my psychic sidekick, he has a Twitter handle, by the way. It's at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talk. He is clearly a deplorable. There is no question about it. I sometimes feel more like a dreg. I just got to tell you that, especially on a day when Obama, and we'll talk about that in a minute, endorsed Joe Biden, who essentially told us we were dregs of society. Now, I might be getting some dreadlocks here if these barbershops don't open pretty soon. I'm going to get my wife to cut my hair, but I'm a little reluctant, although she's certainly qualified to do it, because one time I saw her cutting her mama's hair and she cut her ears. So I'm just I love you, honey, but I'm a little reluctant. But it's probably something I'm going to have to do in in the days. But back to this Facebook debate I had when I was talking about one of the main reasons that many of us voted for Donald Trump was to not be presidential, but to bring a political bomb, if you will, to Washington, D.C. and literally blow it up politically. And he has done that. And I said, I have never been more happy with a vote for president than I have been with my vote for Donald Trump. Sometimes I criticize him. I criticized him a little bit yesterday about this idea that he is the not only commander in chief, but he has the ability to tell the states what to do and when to, stand up or shut up and all that. And if you want to see that, the best way is to go directly to John Martin Talks Facebook page, like it and share it with others if you want to see the podcast of any of our show. Of course, we now have our YouTube channel up and running again, up to date, and I would really appreciate it if people would go directly to our YouTube channel and watch our show, because getting our views up on Facebook, we're getting over 10,000 views a day through Facebook networks, and man, do I really appreciate that. Please keep sharing it. Please keep tuning in. Spread the word. But we need to get our views up a little bit on YouTube, and I'd appreciate you doing that. So check that out. Of course, you can see us on America's Voice News. We're on both Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV. Download the free app on Android or iPhone. We're on Pluto channel. Yeah, we're going all over. And because we're universal, we're actually on a satellite now. Dish TV channel 219. America's Voice News. Check it out. And many people are complaining. I just want to give you a little side note information here. People complain about how President Trump's press conferences are being edited or selectively viewed on some of the networks now. Well, let me tell you, you can go directly to America's Voice News. They cover it live every day. But we also broadcast them live via America's Voice News feed across all of our Facebook networks every day live. So check that out. Go directly to John Martin Talks. But back to this, I was debating with this friend of mine about President Trump, and he said, well, if you're so proud of him, you should have elected P.T. Barnum type person. And I told him, heck, we did, man. I've been saying, he thought that was a cut down. I love it, man. Donald Trump, make no mistake about it, he is a little bit P.T. Barnum. Not really a little bit, he's a lot P.T. Barnum. The Trump presidency, the Trump campaign, everything about Trump is the greatest show on earth. So he thought he was criticizing me, and apparently hadn't been watching my show, because I praised Donald Trump for being a little bit P.T. Barnum all the time. I mean, I love it myself. But back to the article here. Gotta calm down a little bit. People ask me about my cup. This says, I want you on my side of the wall. And my darling wife, who might cut my ear later today, but she gave me that cup. The IRS will mail the checks to people for whom it does not have banking information. Many of them have low incomes. I notice how they have to point that out. And in my words, I'm like, so? I mean, I don't give the IRS my banking information. I'm sure they probably got it. I just wait for the check in the mail. I mean, I kind of like looking at the actual check and that kind of thing. And by the way, if you're waiting on a big tax return check, you know what? You're a dummy. I hate to tell you this, but I hear people all the time talk about, man, I'm getting back $2,000 or something like that. Like that's some big accomplishment. Do you actually realize that what you should do is pay the least amount of taxes you possibly can? I mean, the idea that you're giving the government a free loan of like $2,000, $5,000, whatever amount it is, whatever amount you receive back, do you understand that you have given the federal government a interest-free loan for the last year? If you don't understand that, hit me up on Facebook and I'll explain it to you a little bit better. But back to the article. The paper checks are scheduled to be issued at the rate of $5 million each week until September, starting with the lowest income taxpayers. Well, that'll probably be me. I had people talking about, how much money I'm making doing the show. I hate to tell you this, but I ain't making anything really doing this show at all. I'm doing it. I hope to. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm a capitalist, so I hope to make some money doing it. And we're going to keep coming up with ways that you can help us in the not too distant future. We're trying to get our website vamped up right and all that. But I'm basically working for free right now. Matter of fact, it's beyond that. It costs me to do the show. But I don't misunderstand me. I'm grateful to do it. I enjoy doing it. It comes from the heart. I hope you can see that. But yeah, I'm a capitalist. I will figure out some way to monetize this in the not too distant future. But so I guess that means I'm going to get a check pretty soon. Maybe it's in the mail right now. The White House had initially floated a payroll tax cut. Pay attention to this. Tax cut as a centerpiece of its stimulus effort, but backed off the plan amid concerns it would not reach American households quickly enough. That's true, because a payroll tax cut would be over a period of time. And so, yeah, not getting the money to you as quickly as possible was a factor. But let me tell you what else was. They're worried, and I'm not talking about the Trump administration, I'm talking about the swamp now. The reason why even Republicans don't want a payroll tax cut is because they're worried it might actually start a real revolution. Because I've been maintaining all along, here's what would cause a revolution in this country. I don't know about an armed one, but a political one for sure. If they sent you all the money you pay to various levels of government, in other words, if you got, let's just say you made $20 an hour, $15, whatever, $10 an hour, and you got your money in a lump sum check, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, and you got all the money, and then you had to turn around and write a check to the various levels of the federal, state, government, and all that you have to get taken out. And because you hear people talk about their take-home pay. If you took all of your pay home and then had to write the government a separate check all the time, let me tell you, it would be revolutionary, because you'd realize just how much money you're paying. And trust me, the fact that they deduct it automatically, they've been doing that since before it got easy to do electronically, because they know that if you knew how much you were actually paying, if you could feel the pain, have to break that out and make it rain on them, you would not see things quite the same. About 6 months before he faces re-election, talking about the president, his campaign on pause. I don't know if his campaign's on pause, but they say it is. He's doing a good job of finding different ways to get out there. His campaign on pause because the virus has prevented him from holding the rallies that are popular with his base. That's true. He has, man, that's one thing I miss a lot. A Trump rally, man. If you've never been to one, we may never get to go to another one. Who knows the way this thing's going to go, but I'm hoping we will. But a Trump rally, man, it is a hat and a deal. Is a love fest. If you haven't ever been, if you get a chance, if they come back, you need to go. There's a reason why people stand in line around those. They don't stand in line waiting for Biden, do they? Anyway, by the way, I just heard this earlier today on Biden. You know, he was talking about how he's every man, common man, and how he loved his family so much that he rode the train back to Delaware every day, hanging out with the working people. Did you know that it's now come out? Now, you won't hear this on the mainstream media at all. That when Joe Biden was literally taking the train every day, that there were times when they literally held up the train for Joe Biden to get there. And he's talking about a common man. So hundreds of people, maybe thousands, who were waiting to get home from work had to wait because Senator Joe Biden had not arrived yet. That tells you a lot about him and the common man deal, doesn't it? But about 6 months, they say, okay, holding the rallies that are popular with his base, the checks provide Trump with a new form of retail politics. Man, that is good. A check provides a touchable bread and butter symbol to taxpayers right in their mailboxes. Wait a minute now. I thought that DJT was an idiot. Isn't that what they've been telling us all along? That he's an idiot, that he's a dummy, that he doesn't know what the hell he's doing? Let me tell you, man, it's far from that. Those of us who support Donald Trump know just the opposite of true. This is brilliant. This is brilliant. This is no idiot, man. But to critics and some IRS employees, which we really care what they think, many of whom started to learn the decision on Tuesday, the presence of Trump's name on the checks reeks of partisanship. Partisanship in a corner of the government that touches all Americans and has sense. And you wonder where Obama might have learned to use the IRS. Maybe it was from old Tricky Dick right here. Since the Nixon era steadfastly steered clear of politics after President Richard Nixon targeted a wide range of enemy groups for tax audits, including civil rights groups, reporters, and prominent Democrats, Congress enacted laws to ensure that the agency conducts itself apolitically. So Obama learned it apparently from Richard Nixon, but you know what? He violated the law. You can't tell me that Obama did not know what Lois Lerner and that whole bunch at the IRS who had to take the Fifth Amendment because she was guilty. I know the Fifth doesn't always mean you're guilty, but in her case, I think it's not a stretch to say she was. But Obama not only learned it apparently from Richard Nixon, but he violated the law. No scandals in the Obama administration. We could do a whole series of shows on the scandals of the Obama administration. You talk about an internet lie. The idea that there were no scandals during the Obama administration is crazy. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, of course, she had to chime in, has dismissed suggestions about Trump signing checks or having his name attached. Last week, he said the payments should go out as quickly as possible without waiting for a fancy Dan letter from the president, according to Pelosi. So I guess, Nancy, just add the president to your prayers and all of us receiving checks. Just add us to your prayers, man. You can use JMT or John. Pray for Billy Bob, please, I saw a crazy picture that actually puts Miss Pelosi in a bad but more proper light. She's got this hand sanitizer. I don't know if we got that, but check it out. Right there you go, man. There's Trump. Has anyone seen my hand sanitizer? And the Pelosi, she seems to be finding out what's truly. And I bet she really likes the fact that some of these moonshiners now are making hand sanitizer. Have you heard about that, Nancy? Get you some moonshine-made hand sanitizer. But president, man, the acting presidential, I got to tell you, I love it, man. I love what Donald Trump is doing. But can I make, I'm always trying to help. If you're new to our show, first of all, where you been? Secondly, howdy. Glad to have you. Like it and share it with others. We appreciate it. But one of the things that is a continuous theme here at my show is I'm always trying to help. I guess I come from a long line of school teachers on both sides of my family, so I'm always trying to help and teach and everything. So I want to make a suggestion to the president. If they hadn't actually printed the checks, and if it doesn't delay them too much, I would hope they would make this altercation to the check. Alteration, I guess. It would cause an altercation. Check it out. You see that box right there? That Trump is my president, check, and you get $1,200. Donald Trump is not my president, and you get $0. And is that zero? What is that? I think that's a bird whistle or something like that. I don't know. $0. You get goose egg, baby, if Donald Trump. So have the courage. I would tell you out there, people who say Donald Trump is not my president, have the courage of your conviction. Don't take the money. All right, we're going to move along here. We're going to talk about an article out of the LA Times, man. In a boost to Biden, Obama endorses his former vice president. It finally happened. Oh, boy. Former Vice President Obama on Tuesday formally endorsed Joe Biden for president, a big step in helping to unite their party and marking his own entry into the fight against President Donald Trump. So now Obama gets to take on the Trumpster, man. Finally, it's happening. And here's a picture, I think, of actually Obama endorsing Joe. Check it out. I think we got it. Do we have it, Billy Bob? Well, we all have technical difficulties. Maybe we'll come up with it in a minute. But I had a picture that basically had Obama saying, "I just endorsed you, Joe." And Joe goes, "For what?" Maybe I didn't attack. Could be my fault. But anyway, Obama, now, going back to there it is. I'm endorsing you, Joe. For what? Biden, who am I? Where am I? What are you talking about? Who are you? But 2016, there's this idea that Biden, going back to 2016, why didn't he run in 2016? Now, the official reason is because of family, and I'm not taking away from the fact of losing a son. It's a tough thing. I haven't personally experienced it. My mom actually had to experience it twice. I lost my two older brothers, and I miss them greatly. So I understand that family tragedy can definitely impact you, but don't really think for a minute that Joe Biden, that was the main reason he didn't run. Not taking away from his pain. The reason he didn't run in 2016 is because they told him he couldn't win, that it was Hillary's turn. She was going to run, And I guarantee you they had that conversation, he and Obama, because remember, Obama tried to keep him from running this time around. That's pretty much a known fact. But Biden didn't run in 2016 because he didn't think he could win. Keep in mind, until South Carolina, and 3 times he'd run for president, he'd never even won a primary or a caucus, and I don't think he even came in second anywhere. So don't buy into that. Biden has still got a tough road to hoe, and I don't know how. The Obama endorsement certainly helps him. How much is the real question? Invoking the nation's current health and economic crisis, Obama said in a video release, Joe has the character and the experience to guide us through one of our darkest times and heal us through a long recovery. Do you think Obama really believes that? Let me look at this again. Do you really think that Obama, who ain't no dummy, you may or may not like the guy, but he's no dummy, do you really believe that he thinks that Joe Biden, now he may have the experience, but does he have the ability now? The Joe we're dealing with now. Because Joe has like 50 years of experience, right? I mean, it's amazing how many of these politicians want to run for office and say, I can fix it, when you hadn't fixed it in 50 years, but now you are the solution. And that's on both sides of the aisle. They're the problem. If you've been in Washington for over 10 years, I hate to tell you this, because some of this would include some of my friends, but if you've been in Washington for over 10 years, you're part of the problem, let alone 40 or 50 years. But do you really believe Obama believes this? I don't think it at all. And here's the thing Obama should have seen before he endorsed Biden. And anybody who is now ready to jump on the Biden train wreck, I've been saying this for days and weeks, and you might get tired of seeing it, but everybody who is going to vote for Joe Biden should be made to watch this video on a continuous loop for at least a week. You know, tape your eyes shut, slap you up, sleep deprivation. Watch this video for at least a week before firmly committing to Joe Biden. Check it out.
And by the way, you know, I got hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun. And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again. They look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap. And I've loved kids jumping on my lap.
You have to watch that video at least 24 hours straight before you can support Biden. There'd been little doubt that Obama would back his former vice president once Biden had a lock on the Democratic Party's presidential nomination. But Obama, one of the most popular Democrats in the country, and that's true, had steadfastly withheld any endorsement during the long party contest that featured numerous contenders. Let me just tell you, if you're wondering why Obama was waiting, there's a couple of factors. One, remember what I said earlier. It's pretty much a widely known secret, so to speak. Politico even did a whole story on it months ago, that Obama actually tried to dissuade or persuade Joe not to run. So Obama did not want Joe Biden to run. That is clear. So that's one reason he didn't endorse him. I do think that I take him a little bit at his word, that he was trying to wait until the whoever won actually to get behind that person, because he didn't think it was going to be Joe Biden to start with. I don't believe he thought. I think he's as shocked as anyone that Biden has gotten to this point. And Obama said he wanted to be the unifier of the Democratic Party once they got through the process. And I think that's very, very true. I don't doubt that a bit. But I also think the reason why it took him so long to endorse Biden once all of this came, not so much to lock in Bernie's support, because he was going to sell out at the very beginning, but they were still looking for a replacement for Biden. You know, a Cuomo. They were hoping, of course, Bloomberg was going to do better and all that. And now that there's no convention, at least it doesn't appear to be one, there's going to be an actual physical convention, that Obama really didn't have much choice but to go ahead and endorse Biden, because without an actual convention, there's no way they could find a replacement for Joe, even though I guarantee you Obama wanted one. Choosing Joe to be my vice president, this is what Obama said, was one of the best decisions I've ever made, and he became a close friend. He said, I believe Joe has all the qualities we need in a president right now. What exactly, Mr. Obama, is that quality? I can tell you what it is. He's got a pulse. Contrary to what people may believe, old Joe is still alive. He's got a pulse, at least for now. And I'm not trying to say I'm hoping him or wishing him any ill, but he's alive, and that's all that matters. And you know why I say that? It has nothing to do with Joe Biden. I've told y'all that I think Joe is, I call him Bloated Joe, because the reason he's here is after going into South Carolina, he's still floating out there, old Bloated Joe. He's a terrible candidate. He's always been a terrible candidate. There's no sign he's even better as he's pushing 80. There's no sign of that. But the Democrats, desperate for anybody that might be able to beat Mr. Trump, clinged on to Bloated Joe. But keep in mind, and I'm going to keep reminding you this, don't take anything for granted, because it doesn't really matter at the end of the day who the Democratic nominee is. They have a real shot to actually beat President Trump. I'm not advocating for that. I'm not predicting that. I'm certainly not hoping for that. Matter of fact, I'm working hard to make sure that doesn't happen. But keep in mind, whoever it is, in this case, old Bloated Joe, they're going to win California. They're going to win Illinois. They're going to win Massachusetts, and they're going to win the state of New York right off the bat without a doubt. There's really no doubt, unless something amazingly revolutionary happens, which is possible. I would not bet on it. They're going to start out, whoever the Democratic nominee is, looks like old Joe's going to be the one, starts out with a big advantage. If you don't take that into consideration, you're being naive. So I'm all with you. Trump 2020, landslide, all that stuff like I see you posting on Facebook. I'm with you. But I'm warning you, you cannot take it for granted. We got to work as hard as we've ever worked for somebody to get the president reelected. If we do that, because Trump's going to do his job. I mean, and I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. Putting his name on the checks is a political move. That is no question about it. It is a brilliant P.T. Barnum move, and I love it. I know some of y'all out there may go, well, that ain't right and all that. It ain't got to be right. It's real, and I love it, but don't take it for granted, man. Obama's endorsement came one day after Biden secured the formal backing of his last remaining rival, Bernie Sanders. I want you Bernie bros to really listen to this. Bernie Sanders of Vermont. Another former competitor, Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, is expected to soon endorse Biden as well. The timing of the announcement is being largely determined by the Biden campaign, according to a source familiar with the planning. All of this, and I know this is not a big speculation on my part, it's just a fact. Pretty easy. But Biden, I don't know about Joe, but the Biden campaign, they've orchestrated this for weeks now, including Bernie Sanders. He's been right in the middle of this. Bernie bros, are you okay with that? I mean, you talk about anti-establishment. All of this stuff, Obama, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie now jumping in, all the ones that caved right there and unified behind Bloated Joe. All of this has been orchestrated from the very beginning. And I don't necessarily blame them. That's what a party should do, to put their best foot forward. I don't know if Joe's that guy, but to win. So I'm not really blaming them. I'm simply trying to tell you, Bernie bros out there, this has been choreographed for months. Your guy, as soon as Joe won on Super Tuesday the way it is, probably even before that, but definitely that, your guy Bernie has been selling out every day since. I'm just telling you the fact. You may not like it. Sometimes truth is hard to take, but Bernie is an establishment guy. He is, period. So what are you going to do about it? I've been telling you, you want to actually push a revolution? We already got one. It's called the Trump train, baby. Get on board. Donald Trump, love him, hate him, or whatever. I don't see how you can possibly deny that his candidacy has been and is revolutionary, and his presidency is. You may not agree with everything, but if you want to shake up D.C. even more, your man is DJT. It sure ain't Joe Biden with his new sidekick, Obama. that ain't going to change anything as far as the establishment. It's going to cement and refill the swamp. In his endorsement video for Biden, Obama lavished praise on Sanders. Of course he did. Bernie's an American original, Trump said, a man who has devoted his life to giving voice to working people's hopes, dreams, and frustrations. If Obama really wanted the Bernie revolution to come forward, knew Biden couldn't win or didn't want him to even jump in, why didn't he come out and endorse Bernie ahead of time? You ever thought about that? What do you think the possibility is that Bernie Sanders would have ever gotten Obama's endorsement? I don't know that he would. They certainly, let me just ask you this, Bernie Bros. During this, politics works behind the scenes all the time. Let me ask you to take an honest assessment if you're a Bernie supporter. Do you believe that behind the scenes Obama was, forget Joe Biden, that Obama was working for or against a Bernie victory? I'm just saying. I think if you're honest with yourself, you know the answer to that. But getting back to what Mr. Obama said, he and I, talking about Bernie, haven't always agreed on everything, but we've always shared a conviction that we have to make America a fairer, more just, more equitable society. Translation, we got to transform America. And let me tell you right now what that means. For those of you thinking about supporting Joe Biden, transforming America means to destroy the U.S. Constitution. That's what it's always meant, because our Constitution is in their way. It's in their way on multiple fronts. And the Democrats, the progressive, I'm not talking about every Democratic voter, but the people leading your party. I'm sad to report this as someone who was a lifelong Democrat until about a decade ago. The Democratic Party has been taken over by progressive leftists bent on destroying the U.S. Constitution. Tell me where I'm wrong. What they say, I need to put one of them tables out there. Obama also defended Biden against criticism from the left that his agenda is not bold enough to tackle the nation's problems. Obama said Joe already has what is the most progressive platform of any major party nominee in history, because even before the pandemic turned the world upside down, it was already clear that we needed real structural change. And let me tell you, I was listening, a cousin of mine, we were exchanging text messages earlier this morning, and he's a ham radio operator, has been since he was in high school. And he's been talking literally to ham operators around the world, and everything is pretty shaky economically everywhere. I mean, that's no big surprise, but he's been actually talking to people. And he mentioned to me that it's ripe for what socialists and communists use to take over governments. And he is absolutely correct on that. We are in a very real danger worldwide, not just the United States, because if you look at the rise of any kind of socialism, any kind of communism, dictatorships, everything, it usually is on the heels of a crazy economy, a bad economy. Desperate people will do desperate things. So that's another thing we can't take for granted, why we need to get it back. But what Obama's talking about here, if you think about it, he's saying that there's no real difference, or the differences are minimal between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. That's true. And Bernie Sanders, even by all the political pundits, is given a lot of credit for pulling the Democratic Party to the left even further than it was already going. One thing's for sure, he sped it up. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say that Biden is not for socialism when you at the same time you're praising Bernie for pulling the party hardcore left. And I'll tell you, I've been saying this for months before we ended all this debate. You looked at the 2020 field on the things that really matter, like open borders and a welfare state, like giving free health care to people here illegally, and everything is free. There wasn't a hill of beans difference between any of them. So if you're thinking out there that Joe Biden is somehow a moderate and a return to normalcy, that ain't the truth. He's a return to establishment, but Bernie was already establishment. But we are going to lurch to socialism. Maybe slower under Biden, that's a possibility, but we're on that pull without a doubt, and a torn up economy is only going to expedite that. Just keep that in mind. Biden's service to Obama's administration has been a central element of his campaign pitch and political appeal. Basically, if you remember, let me check my time on this. I want to check because I want to talk about this other story. I got time. Biden's campaign started out as an apology tour and I got a black friend. Basically, what Biden started out doing was saying, I apologize for everything that I have done or haven't done in the last 50 years that I've been up here in D.C. I apologize. Look at South Park apology. Check that out. But he said, I apologize. And oh, by the way, I got a black friend, Barack Obama. I mean, so he said, you know, I didn't want President Obama to endorse me. But everywhere he went, even in the debates, his fellow compadres up there, co-conspirators, if unindicted, which they all should be indicted, co-conspirators, in other words, the 2020 field, they all bitched and moaned about Biden riding on Obama's coattails. So he was always going, I got myself a black friend right here. It was not immediately clear what role Obama would play in the Biden campaign. I want you to pay attention to this. Biden campaign going forward. But he suggested in the video, talking about Obama, he would get out on the hustings once the public health emergency ends. I will see you on the campaign trail as soon as I can, Obama said. Now, here's a word of caution that I'm not sure Biden even thinks about, but I bet his handlers are. How do you use Obama? Now, his endorsement is big. He's by far the most popular Democrat out there, and he's going to help Biden get votes. There's no question about that. I don't have any. But is there a potential, I just throw this out, danger? And I ask you, if there are any hardcore Biden fans, I haven't met one yet, by the way. I've seen people settle for Biden, but are there any people, chime in and let me know on Facebook about it, because I'll come back at you as quickly as I possibly can. Are there any people who are just, I'm not talking about this, but all along, you've been like passionate Joe Biden fans? I mean, I haven't seen any bumper stickers anywhere where I live that says Biden. They're all Bernie, but all the progressives. It's either Bernie or Trump. That's the only thing I've really seen. But are there any passionate Biden fans? Because I bring this up to you, that I would be concerned about Obama overshadowing Biden. Now, it would be natural that Obama might overshine anybody, but with Biden, bumbling, stumbling, old creepy Uncle Joe Biden, who can't even read off of a teleprompter, let alone ad lib, you know, when he talks about you know what the deal is. I mean, when it's like, here's my loving wife. No, that's my sister. I mean, that guy, that dude right there that doesn't even know what state he's in half the time. Do you really fear that if Obama comes out, if they think about this, now on video, they may be able to alter it, but if they had a real campaign where Obama gave a speech to a rally and then introduced Joe Biden, how would that look? Because the whole thing would peak with the guy that introduced him, Mr. Obama. So there is definitely an issue out there. All right, we got just a few minutes left, and I want to cover kind of an ongoing story here, and that is about how the Democrats are plotting and scheming, and some Republicans, I don't know if they're actually plotting with them, but they might cave. Bipartisanship always means that Republicans cave. That's what bipartisanship means. But this is an opinion piece that Amy Klobuchar, you know, that was running for president, the senator from I guess Wisconsin, right? She says here that Trump votes by mail. Why can't everyone? And she posted this in the New York Times. It's been reposted several times. These are Amy's words. In a democracy, no one should be forced to choose between the health and the right to vote. Well, Amy, right off the bat, let me tell you, they don't have to now. You don't have to do that now. Every single state that I know of has absentee ballot and early voting. There may be some exceptions to that. I don't know. If there is, I apologize, but I think every state has both absentee ballot and early voting right now. So you could request that. Imagine, she says, back to Amy's words, if days before the November election, you learn that your polling place has been closed, that your request for absentee ballot has gone unfulfilled, and you have a risk to grave infection by standing in line, possibly for hours, to claim your stake in our democracy. And she talks about it sounds outrageous to her, but it actually happened in Wisconsin. And that's true. But on the absentee ballot, the problem was that the only people that didn't get the absentee ballots were not people who went through the normal channels. They all got theirs, but there was like a week-long extension of absentee ballot right at the last minute. And that was a problem because, you know, it was a last minute things. Last minute things have problems. But they knew for months what was potentially going to happen in Wisconsin. So at some point, and I've been telling you this for a while now, at some point, individual human beings, American citizens, have to take personal responsibility. That's why the theme of my show is battling ignorance and apathy daily. I want you to be informed, but at the end of the day, you have to take personal responsibility. You don't have, because if you don't, what's going to happen is exactly what Thomas Jefferson warned us about so long ago. Can we show that picture? Because about ignorance and free. Essentially what Jefferson said is that no nation can be both ignorant and free because they want what never was and never will be. If there's one theme to my show, it would be that. I'm battling that ignorance and apathy. So she's talking about, and she uses a Donald Trump voting absentee. So he did it, so why can't everybody? Everybody can, and I cannot emphasize this enough. The difference between absentee voting and mail-in voting is that an absentee, you have to take personal responsibility, request it, and get it sent to you, and there's a chain of command. The mail-in voting that Klobuchar is pushing for is the idea that everybody registered to vote gets sent automatically a mail-in ballot with a return envelope, whether they request it or not. You know, if you don't have enough gumption to actually go and vote, what makes you think you're going to take that ballot serious? So it is an attempt to steal the election. I want to also real quickly squelch a big headline that came out, because the election results, even though it was over a week ago, the election results came out for Wisconsin, and the Democrats rule the day in local elections and even a Supreme Court election. And the media is making a big deal about that. Keep in mind that it don't really mean squat, because the Democrats were the only one that had any reason to go out and vote. You know, the President Trump was on the ballot, but he was automatically going to win. So with all the hassle that was in voting, and I agree there was hassle, there's no doubt that Democrats were going to sweep that. So I'm not saying that we can take Wisconsin for granted. Not saying that at all, but it's overblown. Bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't do anything else politically, you must push to squelch this mail-in voting that the Democrats are pushing, because it's going to take our republic, Donald Trump aside, it's going to destroy our republic. I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to John Martin Talks Facebook page, like it and share it with others. Check out our YouTube channel, spell it all the way out, John Martin Talks. But above all else, I will pray for your family. You pray for mine. And as I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.